Let's have some demonstration on how we can assume an AWS IAM role. So for this demonstration on how we can assume an AWS IAM role, so we will go to the Identity and Access Management, or IAM. In the IAM console, we will create our sample user, and this IAM user will have no permissions assigned to it. After the creation of the user, we will then create the IAM role. So in an IAM role, so there are two things that we need to configure. Okay, so the permissions. So these are the set of permissions on what this IAM role can access to, or what are the resources that it can access. Then the IAM trust policy. So it contains who can use or can assume this IAM role. We will then go to the S3, or the simple storage service. We will create a sample bucket. So for this bucket, so this will be used as our demonstration, wherein this IAM user will try to access this bucket. So if we have the user and we have a sample bucket, so suppose we don't assume a role. So like mentioned, this user don't have any permissions assigned. And if it try to access this S3, or simple storage service, he will be denied because this user does not carry any permissions for S3. However, if this user will present its identity to the AWS Security Token Service. So this STS is a service that enables you to request temporary or limited privilege credentials for the users. From here, the role will then check whether the identity is inside the trust policy of this role, and if it is, then it will carry the permissions. So now it will return to the user with a temporary security credential, and this temporary security credential will be then used by the user to access the simple storage service S3. And in this case, if there are S3 permissions here, okay, created, then this user will be able to access the simple storage service. Alright, we are now in AWS Management Console. So let's type IAM, or Identity and Access Management. So click on it and we will be on the IAM console. So first we will create the user. Then from there we will create the role, assign the permission and the trust policy. So users, okay. So we will create our user. So for our scenario is test S3 user demo. Okay, so test S3 user demo, and we will need the management console for this user. Okay, so custom or auto-generated password should be okay. So then let's just show the password. Then we will uncheck this. Okay, so we don't need it for our demonstration. So test S3 user demo, auto-generated password. Let's show the password. So next. So permissions, we don't create any permissions, or we don't add this user to a group. We don't have any group. So next, and create the user. So from here, so user created successfully. So as you can see, we have the username, and let's have the console password. So let's copy this console password and we can log in later. Now that it's done, so let's close this one and we go back to our IAM. So we copy the password, so IAM, and yeah, we continue. So next is we go to the access management and we go to roles, and from the role we create our role. So AWS service is our selection here, so use case will be S3. That's right. Then click next. Okay, so permission policies for this demonstration, we just put in the S3 full access. Okay, of course we can do some modifications for S3 as we will create our custom manage policy, but for this example let's just assign this role with a permission policy. So just now we discussed that the role will have a permission policy and a trust policy. So this one is the permission policy, so click next, and the role name is just test S3 role demo. Okay, so trust policy we will go back to this one, but for now let's just create the role. Okay, so the role is created. Alright, so IAM roles, so we have our role test S3 role demo, and if we go to permissions, so we have attached the policy Amazon S3 full access, so that should provide the permission to access the S3, whether it's write or reading. So here is the second part, which is the trust relationships or trust policy, if you may. And if we go to the trust relationships, so you'll notice here that under the principal, okay, it's stated here the S3 Amazon AWS.com. So we will need to change this to the ARN of the user, so the user that we have created just now. So we go to IAM users and we find our user. So we are now in the test S3 user demo, and all we need to do here is to copy the ARN. Okay, so we have this copy ARN to clipboard here, and this value here is the one that we will need to replace on that trust relationship or trust policy on the principal. Back in IAM roles test S3 role demo, so we go back to the trust relationships and we will edit the trust policy. From here we will just edit line number 7, which is this line, and we need to replace this. So we need to replace this from the one that we have copied. Alright, but this one is not a service, so we need to replace this. So instead of service, we will just replace it with AWS. So if there are no errors, okay, in our trust policy creation, so we'll just save this or update the policy. So the trust policy is updated. So you'll notice that the trust relationship now on line number 7 is changed to the ARN of our test user. So that is the test S3 user demo. Next, we go to the simple storage service or S3. So we search on the S3 service, click on S3. Okay, so we'll click on create a bucket, and region is fine. So test S3 bucket demo, hopefully this is available. Okay, so because the bucket name must be unique globally. Okay, so hopefully this is available, and from here we're okay with this, and let's just click the create bucket. Okay, so create bucket is unsuccessful because the S3 bucket demo. So let's just put in some numbers here, 1 2 3 4 5 to make it unique. Anyway, this is for demonstration purposes only. Click create bucket, and yes, our bucket is accepted and we have successfully created a bucket. So this will be the sample bucket or the S3 bucket that the user will try to access. So this is our bucket, so Amazon S3 buckets, and we go to our bucket, test S3 bucket demo 1 2 3 4 5. I've taken the liberty to upload some test files so that we will have an empty bucket, so later on the user, if it's granted the permission, should see at least the two files or text files that are uploaded or inside this test bucket. So I have signed out to the admin user and I've signed in to the user that we have created. So you notice test S3 user demo is being signed in already, and we do test. So we go to S3. Let's find S3, and from here we should be able to see some buckets, and from the Amazon S3. Okay, so you will see you don't have any permission to list buckets, so we can confirm that this test S3 demo don't have any permissions, not even to list buckets, okay, to go inside or to see the bucket listing in our Amazon S3 service. So now let's assume the role that we have created, so the test S3 role demo. So for us to assume a role, so we go from here and we click the switch role. Okay, so the switch role will give you this instruction, so how to assume a role or to switch to a role in 3 simple steps. So create the role is yes, we have already created. Then role access, okay, so the account ID or the alias, and we should take note of the role name to use, so we need to remember the role name. And finally you switch the roles. Since we have the necessary information, so let's click on switch role. Okay, so put in the account number. Okay, so we don't have alias, so the role name is test S3 role demo. Display name is for maybe just copy the role demo, can be okay. Then you can pick some color to it. Okay, so just review, and if this is correct or this is accepted and our user has been granted or trusted the policy to this role, then we should be successful in switching the role. So we click switch role. Okay, seems fine. Okay, and we have this color, so we are now okay assuming the test S3, so currently active the test 3 S3 role demo. Okay, so sign in as the test S3 user demo, but currently taking the role test S3 role demo. And from here you'll see our test bucket. So previously we have the access denied, which is we cannot list the buckets, and if we click on the bucket, and yes, we are seeing the 2 sample files that we have uploaded.